Hello, everyone. My name is Keely Denenberg. I'm Senior VP of Client Solutions here at Orange Grove Consulting. And today I am joined by Dr. Jodi Detjen, one of our managing partners here at Orange Grove Consulting. So, Jodi, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about change management as it relates to some of the projects that we work on. So, as you know, HR is increasingly seen as an opportunity area for increasing efficiency and effectiveness. And this especially relates to new AI and integration of AI and analytics into HR. So, what are your thoughts as organizations start to look at this as an opportunity area?
Yeah, one of the things that I see over and over and over again, and we see this in our work, is that organizations take a technology and then they just glom it onto whatever they're doing currently. And that's not the way technology should be used. The way you think about technology is say, what is our overall vision of what we're trying to achieve? And what are the outcomes that we're looking for? And then you redesign it using technology. So you're literally creating a new process. This is a change management process. Oftentimes people are like, okay, we're just going to implement the technology. We're going to start using data analytics. And we go through the change curve and people are like, oh my God, they're frozen solid. And nobody thinks about communication. They don't think about envisioning. They don't think about creating a sense of urgency. They don't think about collaboratively designing the change. And so when these changes are requiring whole scale rethinking of how we actually do the work, that is a 101 change process. It's not a switch. So we have to, again, think about the envisioning process. What is it we're trying to achieve? How best can we rethink our processes? What kind of skill sets do people need in order to manage this effectively? Who is going to use it? What is the users or the people that are going to be integrating or working with us? How do they have to interact with us? What are the skill strengths that we have? What are our gaps? So you need to really look at it holistically and change the entire process using the technology as the tool, not as the thing, but as a whole rethink of the process.
And, at Orange Grove, we're asked to step into parts of this. A lot of times clients will say to me, where should we start? Now, if they're looking at something like this, what would your answer to them be?
So I think there's a couple ways to start. I'm a huge fan of piloting. So we often recommend try things out in a small way. So I always, always, always say start very small. So maybe you use a process where there aren't a ton of stakeholders, it's just a couple of stakeholders, or maybe use a process that's simple and you just want to automate that. So I would start with that small process and then you create a whole step of basically a project plan of how you're going to do it. And with all the different steps, the envisioning, the identifying who's going to be affected, how are they going to be affected, what skills you need, all these different things that I just mentioned. And you manage that pilot in a holistic change management way. And then as you get towards the end, as you're starting to see the outcomes and you've learned from that pilot, then you start to figure out how might we spread this? How might we scale this? How might we think about it for other processes? I've seen organizations do it successfully in a linear fashion where they go process by process by process. I've also seen organizations that after the pilot, they do it in a whole scale process. So it really depends on the appetite for change, where resistance showed up, how difficult that first pilot was. So many of those factors are going to be dependent upon the client and their situation.
Okay, that's helpful. And then finally, when I think about the work that we do as it relates to employee engagement and the way that we measure, engagement and intent to turnover, that type of thing, one of the challenge areas that often comes up for our clients is we give them really specific ideas for what to do next. And then sometimes they're not able to kind of move forward after that. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, so we see this all the time, right? We have seen this so many different clients. They'll measure engagement and then they measure it, measure it, measure it, measure it, and then they wonder why things don't change. Or one year it's up and the next year it's down, and they're not actually thinking holistically about what the data is telling them about their current situation. So I think what we really always try to recommend is you do a gap analysis. So here's where the current state is. Where is it that you want to be? And in that envisioning process, what are the component parts? So let's just take an example. So in one of our clients, there was an issue around the promotion process. So the first thing we do is and that showed up in the engagement survey. The first thing we do is we step back and we say, okay, what is it that you want to happen? What would be the ideal, promotion process look like? And it's not just that the people who are administering it look at it. You look at all your different stakeholders and you ask them what the ideal would be. So you come up with a collaborative vision of the ideal state, and then you manage it like every other project. You basically say, all right, what are the component parts to get us to that vision from where we are today? What needs to change? What processes need to change? How do we measure those processes? What incentives do we have? What training do we have to include? All those different component parts, and then you manage it like a change management process where you're making these changes. And again, pilot. So if we were working with that client, what I would always suggest is that you try it first with one department or with one business unit, and you see how it changes there. You measure it because you're going to learn a ton in that pilot, that then it's easier to scale. So this way, you don't throw everything on the table and then you have to have complete success. You try it with a pilot, and then you either slowly roll it out or you roll it out after that, but you've learned so much. Every time needs to be a change management plan, because you will get resistance. Regardless of what happens, you will 100% guaranteed get resistance, because that's human. So let's plan for it and let's design for it.
Yeah. Spoken like a true change management expert and guru.
Been there a lot.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jodi. I really appreciate your time. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Check back to our YouTube channel for more short conversations like this one. Take care.